Hello, my name is Joana, and for my AP seminar final, I will analyze a study on intersectionality in the healthcare workforces. The title of the study is Intersectionality and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Healthcare and Scientific Workforces, and it was published in The Lancet in January of 2025. There are 8 authors of the study, and they are affiliated with several reputable organizations worldwide, such as the National Institute of Health in the USA, the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland, and Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. This study is particularly significant because it addresses how DEI efforts remain insufficient despite growing recognition of their need, especially in light of challenges like COVID-19's strain on healthcare, global aging populations, and healthcare workforce shortages. It also applies the concept of intersectionality to promote innovation, equitable healthcare access, and address persistent inequities. Intersectionality is defined as an analytical framework that explains how a person's overlapping social identities, like race, gender, class, and sexuality, combine to create unique experiences of discrimination, privilege, or marginalization. A literature review is a comprehensive summary and critical evaluation of existing scholarly research on a specific topic. This study's methodological basis is lit review, and throughout the piece, 47 sources published between 2015 and 2023 are reviewed. It also discussed intersectionality theory as proposed by Kimberly Crenshaw and feminist thought, as well as contemporary examples of workforce disparities based on race, gender, and socioeconomic status. The gap in research this study aimed to address was that existing DEI access initiatives lacked an intersectional focus, often treating identities as separate categories instead of a complex combination. It aims to prove that the intersectionality approach promotes innovation, equitable healthcare access, and addresses persistent structural inequities. The research question for this study is: how do intersecting social identities interact with workplace inequities, and what strategies can effectively incorporate intersectionality into DEI programs? And although not explicitly framed as a hypothesis, the underlying assumption is that applying intersectionality will improve the equity and effectiveness of DEI interventions and enhance workforce diversity and inclusion outcomes. The study employs a qualitative literature review methodology. It focuses on synthesizing qualitative themes and evidence from several existing studies and commentaries related to the subject. The primary approach is a systematic review, meaning it uses technology to filter through studies. The researchers find relevant studies, then code the data using a qualitative coding scheme to identify emergent themes in the literature. The step-by-step of this study is as follows. Step 1. The researchers define the scope of their search. Step 2. They search on databases such as PubMed and PsycInfo using relevant keywords, such as intersectionality, diversity, equity, and inclusion, scientific workforce, healthcare workforce, limiting search to publications from 1989 to 2023, and excluding duplicates and non-English language resources for consistency. For step 3, they extracted the data using 2 independent coders to review the full text sources that they found. They developed a coding mechanism to find qualitative themes that were in common inside these studies. Then, for step 4, they determined how often each of the themes appeared across all of the sources they found. Then they organized the themes by how often they were found and how relevant they were to the concept. Finally, step 5, they reported their findings by summarizing the qualitative themes, discussing the implications that these studies offered, and reflecting on the limitations of the literature that is available to us right now. The particular thing about this study is it didn't utilize subjects, but articles. The sources addressed many social characteristics such as race, disability, gender, and geographic regions, but the paper does not specify numeric detail beyond the study's natures. So the only demographic we have within the study we look at is n equals 47, where n is studies used in the study. That's why it's called a meta-analysis. This article presents data qualitatively and includes visuals such as a graphical representation of intersectionality showing how various social identities intersect as a beam of light illuminating surrounding power structures. More explicitly, a table also summarizes the qualitative items in the review regarding challenges faced by individuals with intersecting identities, including themes such as discrimination, barriers to advancement, lack of mentorship, caregiving burden, increased attrition, harassment, and minority tax, along with the number of sources citing each theme. This is called a percentage prevalence. The lit review is limited by database and language limitations. The search was restricted to 2 databases and English publications only, which may have omitted relevant studies, especially from non-English speaking regions. Also, most literature is focused on intersections of gender and race or ethnicity, with less attention to other identities, such as disability, sexual minorities, age, and immigration status. The study concludes that inserting an intersectional lens into DEI efforts would provide a more nuanced understanding of how multiple identities and power structures come into play together. It reveals more complex barriers, such as discrimination, harassment, and caregiving burdens. The review identified significant themes, such as the ones priorly mentioned, that require targeted interventions. However, it also pointed out gaps in the literature, including limited research on less studied intersecting identities and geographic diversity beyond primarily US-centric context. Some future implications and consequences on society are that intersectionality promises to create more equitable and inclusive workplaces by informing policies that better support marginalized employees with intersecting identities. This can result in improved employee retention, satisfaction, and career advancement for marginalized groups in the scientific and healthcare sectors. I had many motivations for choosing this topic, such as my dream of becoming a doctor, especially in an increasingly globalized world, my identity as a South American woman that plans to move abroad in the future, my school community, which has raised us to be global citizens, and my mother, who is the head of global health at PUC-RS and studies this on a daily basis. A challenge in understanding this study was the different effects identities have on each other and how that can be prejudicial to healthcare workers, but it also revealed the depth of systemic inequalities. Finally, ways I would build on this research are by conducting a longitudinal study that investigates the effects of intersectionality DEI efforts over time, or comparing how different intersecting identities challenge people in different ways, or conducting qualitative research interviewing specific intersectional groups in clinical settings or laboratories. Thank you so much for watching.